Good afternoon, everybody, and a very warm welcome to today's Learn in Your Lunchtime webinar. And we are talking about referencing, so it's going to be absolutely such a thrilling session because I know that you love referencing. So I know that I struggled with it, and it really took me a little bit of time just to get the tips and tricks that I'm going to take you through today. But once I got those, then I realized that referencing didn't have to be stressful. It didn't have to take up a lot of time. And in actual fact, it was an important part of contributing to academic knowledge. So you have to play a role as a student. If you're doing research and you want to make a contribution, before you can add your work into the world's academic knowledge, you have to understand exactly how it works. So we are going to be going through academic referencing in this webinar today, and I'd really like you just to pop your questions into the chat. And as always, let us know where you're from, which university. Really great just to see just more and more universities joining these Learn in Your Lunchtime sessions on a Friday. Every week Friday at 12 o'clock. And today, as I said, is on academic referencing, and we're going to just jump around and take you through a couple of tips and tricks. And really what I've learned the hard way is what I'm going to be taking you through today. And I just don't want you guys to struggle the way that I did. I want you to have the benefit of what I learned so that you can do an even better job than what I did. And I think the most important thing for me when it comes to referencing is that it is absolutely necessary. And there are tools and tips and tricks out there to save you the time so that it's not a stressful thing. It's not something that you cram in at the last minute. You have to sit doing it 2, 3 in the morning. But it will require that you set a few things up initially and that you think about those things. And so that when you come to use them, you're actually quite slick and capable in doing your referencing. All right, so welcome, Charlize, Khomotso, Shalik. Fantastic to have you guys here. University of Pretoria, always a good showing on these sessions. And the feedback I get, guys, and the updates that we get on the chat and in the Facebook group afterwards is just phenomenal. And I just think, if we keep these going every week, I just make time available. I'm going to be providing you with the course for free at the end of the session. I'll put the link in the chat, and you can go and grab that. And then on a self-paced process, just go and get all the extra learnings that you want. We've got Paul from Stellenbosch University. Hey, Cara, good to have you here. Great to have Leandri, also very regular in the Facebook group. We've got such an awesome community going in the Facebook group. It's a members-only group. You should have got the link in your emails from your university this week, but I'll pop the link in the chat as well. So please do pop into there and just get the encouragement and the support that you need. So Vusi says University of Pretoria in South Africa, fantastic, and he's excited to learn how to reference like a pro, and I will be back every week. Vusi, I'm going to be here every week, so you and I are going to meet, and I just wish that I sort of had access to this type of content in these regular sessions, and I think in times of COVID and lockdowns and everything, the more that we can help each other, the better. Universities do a great job of helping their students, but their focus is to get you through and to get published as an institution. But I think there's a bit of coaching in the middle that just helps you ensure that it's not stressful and that you don't drop out and that you can still have time to do the things that you want to and have a balanced life. Postgraduate academic studies, even undergraduate academic studies, especially in the very tough degrees where there's a lot of workload, requires sacrifice of time. And where I really come in is to say, what are some of those peripheral aspects related to being a successful student that can just, help ease that workload so that you can focus in on studying medicine and engineering and, accounting and, all these incredibly awesome things that we need you to be successful in to solve the problems of the world today. So when it comes to referencing, don't let referencing hold up your ability to find, the next vaccine that we need for, the next pandemic or whatever the big challenges are that we're facing, as humanity today. Don't drop out because you can't just finish your thesis, for example. You've done a study, you've worked for 3-4 years, and I know people that just couldn't get that final report done. They had all the data, they'd gone through, they'd sacrificed 3-4 years of their life, Charlize, yeah, I'm also motivated to study medicine. Yeah, all of a sudden, absolute respect to our health workers and, the virologists and everybody. And vaccines have arrived in South Africa already. So proudly South African. I think, we are going to look after, our people, and we've done the right things and we've been led well. So Cara, let's get into a little bit of referencing. You're talking about using EndNote for the last year, and I love it, but I hope to learn extra tips and tricks I may not be aware of. Fantastic. So Cara, you're launching us into our session today, and we're going to get straight into it. We've got Astrid, Tion, Rion. Fantastic, guys. Natasha Duplessis, so happy to have this opportunity. I'm so happy to be able to provide it to you because I've learned these things. I've got through my PhD. I didn't get it all worked perfectly. I struggled just like you did, and I'll tell you some of those stories just now. But I'm passionate about saying if I can give back, then I'm going to give back. I've packaged a lot of that knowledge in my courses, and you can go and do those straight away. But if I can introduce you to the topic, and if you can build some trust with me, I'm a real person sitting here. I'm actually in my garage. A couple of weeks ago, I shared, the studio and the process that I've gone through to set this up, and you can find that on the YouTube channel. So please, while you're here, just go and subscribe on the YouTube channel. You'll get all the information about me and the coaching tips that I provide on a regular basis. But the point is, let's build some trust. And then when you go into the course and you go into a lot more detail, and Cara, in the course, I've actually got screen flow demos that I take you through. Click here, do this, do that, the next thing, etc. But in today, I'm going to introduce you to those. I'm going to show you those things, and I'm going to tell you what's possible in Notes. So in EndNote. So let's get into it. As an accounting student, I'm truly lost when it comes to referencing. Well, Amy, I'm truly lost when it comes to accounting. So I'm just thrilled that there are people like yourself that want to do accounting. So please carry on and just be a successful accounting student. But my single most important goal today is to give you a little bit of confidence when it comes to referencing. Nomvula, hi there, Abigail. Okay, so I'm looking for specific questions now. If you can just drop that in the chat, we're going to get going now with the live coaching. So I am just looking to see what are your specific questions with regards to referencing, and specifically the tool EndNote, but also the principles do apply to other referencing tools like Zotero and Mendeley, etc. I have not used those two tools. I've only used EndNote. So I'll talk about EndNote specifically, but I would imagine there's some similarities with those other tools as well. So you are going to learn a lot today. And then you're going to have to pick a tool, and you're going to have to back it. And that's the most important thing. Don't jump around and think that the tool is going to make all the difference. How you use the tool and the principles of how you reference and bring that into your writing is far more important. Okay, so let's start getting into it, and let's talk about the academic referencing system. So the world's primary knowledge, and when I talk about primary knowledge or primary research, this is work that students like yourself are doing, and that you are focused on in getting a thesis done or producing a research report in a module or an assignment at an honors or a master's level, or like a full PhD, like some of you might be doing, as I did recently, and even on into postdoctorate work, and academic lecturers and people that are permanently in the academic field are all producing primary research. Now, primary research means that you have gone into the field, and you have gone and you have collected data, and you have then analyzed that, you've applied a methodology, and you've either, broadly speaking, you've either tested an existing theory, or you've developed a new theory. So you're either going to do deductive research, okay, which is testing a theory. So in science, we've got lots of theories, and then we need new data sets to go and test those theories. Or in, quite popularly, the humanities, we're still learning, we're still understanding. I did my PhD using grounded theory, and I wanted to understand the human factors of agile software engineering. So I used a methodology like grounded theory, which is inductive. And inductive is producing a theory. So primary research says that you test or you develop new theories through primary research. So when you read Wikipedia, when you read contemporary sources, books, etc., all of that is secondary. It is referencing other people's research. But you, me, everyone in academia is producing primary research. Now, referencing and the system of referencing is how we organize all of that work. And we've all read through papers. We've all seen that list of references at the end. We've all read papers, and we've seen a little number or maybe it's a surname and a year. We'll talk a bit about the different formats or styles of referencing just now, etc. But that system, when I talk about the academic referencing system, and I give you a little bit more of a detailed intro in the course, is how the world's knowledge is organized. And remember, the world's knowledge, yes, we are aware of it through secondary sources, but primarily it is contained in all the world's academic databases. So when you get an article published, and I've got a course on helping you to get your research published in academic journals and conferences, so go and have a look at that course if you want. But when you publish an article in an academic journal, it's gone through a peer review process, it is your contribution into that world of academic knowledge. But it is only going to be easily accessible to other academic researchers if you reference it properly and if you understand the academic referencing system. And so both in terms of making a contribution, but then accessing everybody else's research, you need to understand the way that knowledge is organized. And the most important principle, I think, is that there should always only ever be a singular way of accessing or referencing a piece of work, or a study or an outcome or a contribution to academic knowledge. So what you'll find is that those fields that pop up in your list of references, so you've got the date, you've got the name of the journal, you've got the author, there's lots of other fields, etc. And I must admit, sometimes it gets a little bit confusing for me, but ultimately all that's doing is saying, if you use these fields, you can find exactly that piece of knowledge. Anybody can find it, anybody can reference it, and everybody knows exactly which they are talking about. It's like if you've got, a kid and you say, go and get the red book off the bookshelf. They're not going to know that maybe there's 6 red books on the bookshelf. We need to be able to reference precisely in academic work exactly which other articles or research we are bringing into our own, because confusion or misquoting, etc., could have significant consequences. And that's why examiners are very focused on making sure that you reference correctly. It is because of this academic referencing system. Now, we'll talk a little bit just now, but the different styles have different formats. And all that means is that they give more or less emphasis to different fields depending on the faculty that you're working in. Okay, we'll have a look at a couple of those now. So engineering, so IEEE, for example, what I've used is very different to humanities. Okay, and I'll give you a very quick example of that. In a humanities citation, in the paragraph or in the sentence, when you look at a humanities, you'll see the name and the year in which that piece of work is published. Now, you'll have to go to the list of references at the end of that report to get other information about it and the journal name, etc. So there's a good possibility that somebody reading that in the context of that paragraph and they see Alchema 2020, and I'm talking about agile software engineering, they'll have a good sense of what they're talking about, the writer, and they'll quickly be able to go and get that because they'll be in the field, they'll understand the context, there'll be other preceding paragraphs and sentences that are building up to that point, and it provides sufficient triangulation on that specific document for the person to go and get information. So humanities, when you read that, it puts the name and the year. Okay. In IEEE, in engineering, it's just a number. Okay, and that number references the list of references at the end of the document. So humanities, let's just be clear, you'll see the name and the year, and then you'd have to go and look in the list of references, and that is organized according alphabetically the surname. So Alchema would be at the top, for example, but there could be multiple Alchemas. There could be an Alchema in 2020, there could be an Alchema in 2019, etc. And you would then need to go through and see which one you were referencing. In IEEE, it's just the number. And then in the reference list, there's a number at the beginning of all the references. So you'd have to look at the number 28, and then you'd have to scroll down the list of references 28. Okay, now when I was in the paragraph, I had no idea what reference they were talking about. I had to go back to the reference list at the end and go down and find 28 and come in there. Okay, let's just pick up a couple of questions. I'm just giving a bit of introduction here to referencing. Haley says it becomes confusing when referencing someone that was referenced in an article, e.g. an article quoting another article, do you reference the original article or the article you found initially? Haley, you must, I would suggest you reference the primary research. Okay, so remember, always go to primary sources. So, and I'll give you an exception to that, okay? And I'll give you a way in which you can talk about that. Remember, citations is not just about putting the reference in the sentence or the paragraph. That is important, and we'll teach you the tips and tricks and tools today as well. Referencing is also about the context around that citation. So Haley, you would be talking about this other article, and you would, in the sentence leading up to the actual citation, talk about the fact that in this article, so-and-so was also mentioned, okay? But for me, if I now need to go to one article to look at that, and then in that article's reference, go and find another article to find out what you're talking about, I'd be a little bit frustrated. So if I was you, I would go to the core article. I would go to the original article, and I would turn it around. I would say, this person, or talk about the citation and the work that they did is referred to in this other article, and you actually cite both of them, okay? But the one that is the more important one that you're trying to get the reader to be aware of and engage with, you should put first, and you should have its own individual citation of. Now, it's good for you as a researcher, because at a PhD level, they're expecting hundreds of references, and typically your total reference library is going to be more than 1,000, I would suggest. Master's honors is going to be slightly less, etc. So Haley, you're building up your credibility as a researcher because you've gone to an article, you've seen its reference in another article, you've gone to that one. Chances are, even in that one, there's others that they reference, etc. I would bring all of those in. I would demonstrate that you've navigated through this world of academic knowledge, and you've brought it to your reader in the most convenient and contextual way that adds to what you're talking about and makes it easy for them to reference. Louise, Haley, Aaron, depends on which article you're referencing. If you're only referring to Mr. A in Mr. B, then you can reference it as such. If you want to reference Mr. A in his article, then do so 100%. So remember, there's two journeys. There's the journey of the reader, and there's the journey of the researcher. Don't talk about the journey of the researcher. Otherwise, you're just giving a running commentary. You're saying, I read this article, then I read that article, then I read this article, then I read this article. You've got to write with your reader in mind. Your reader is going to be most interested in the primary research. Remember what we said at the beginning, primary research. So you've got to switch it around. You've got to say, in this article is this information that they found, etc., which also happens to be referred to in this other study, which considered these other authors, etc. So switch it around. Okay, don't give your journey, otherwise it's just a running commentary. I found this article, then I found that one, boom, boom, boom. Go to the one that's the most useful, bring it forward, and as a side note, reference where else it has been referenced. Okay. Good, Haley, fantastic. All right, more questions, please, guys. Bring the questions through. Let's keep the questions coming. Keeps me on my toes, which is fantastic. All right, so now we spoke about the different referencing systems, okay, and or the styles, let's say. So you can see the styles there on the left-hand side, and I just love this image. We think about the world's knowledge, and we sort of visualize that in the physical form factor of books, etc. But obviously, it's all digital. It's all on academic databases around the world. And those are the five main ones. So MLA, APA, Chicago, IEEE, CSE. Now, I only have actual experience of IEEE because I'm in engineering, and that was the referencing that I use. So in my tribe of engineers and the engineering-related databases and the engineering-related journals and conferences and publications, when you read through those, you'll be familiar with the IEEE style. You'll be able to use it because you've got that familiarity. But if I'm doing art history, if I'm studying psychology, if I'm doing English, okay, you're going to be seeing a different style of referencing. But please understand me. The core fields of any reference are always going to be the same in terms of the label. Okay, so you've got the year, the author, if it's a conference, the journal, the page number that you're referring to, etc. All of those fields are going to be consistent across all of these. Now, what EndNote and these other referencing tools gives you is that because it's got the library and the information or the metadata, if you like. So you've got your PDF, you found a lack of PDF, you want to use that, download it into EndNote. And I'm going to teach you a trick just now about how you quickly go and get that metadata and you link it up to your PDF. Never, ever should you have to type in an entire citation, year, author. You should never have to do that. Very exceptional circumstances that you're going to have to do that. Okay, and I'll teach you just now a quick trick that I learned that saved me hours and hours and hours. Okay. So when you talk about different styles, don't think that you've got different referencing systems or principles that you have to worry about in each of those. In EndNote, in fact, in Microsoft Word, once you set it up, you can go and click a drop-down box and you can change your entire referencing style from one to the other. Now, what was very interesting is, as I mentioned, I did an engineering PhD, software engineering, okay? But I used a humanities method called grounded theory. And in actual fact, we submitted a few articles into some of the humanities journals because we were talking about the application of humanities methodologies in an engineering field. And when I then had to write that article for the humanities journal, I just quickly flicked that switch and it changed all of my references. It was all the same references, same EndNote library, all the same work that I did for PhD. I just clicked a button and I got any one of the styles that I wanted to. And in actual fact, yes, these are the 5 groups, if you like, but in actual fact, there's hundreds of different types. There's like, when you go into EndNote, you can see it's like APA 1.1, APA 1.2, APA 1.3, whatever. Now, your faculty will give you that in a style guide. So you should have a style guide that says, even when you're writing, your headings must be 12 point in bold. Then you must sub-bullet like this, references on this page, etc. In that style guide somewhere, they'll give you a more specific referencing style, but it'll be in one of these 5 groupings. And in EndNote, they've got the whole world's list of referencing styles. So very importantly, you'll be coming into today's webinar and you'll be doing referencing and research within one of these faculties. And pretty much unless you publish into one of the other faculties, and this cross-disciplinary research is very, very interesting, you're pretty much going to stick within one of those. And I think what's more important is then that you know whether there is a specific Chicago style that you need to use or a specific APA style that you need to use, and that you can then quickly change those in EndNote or Microsoft Word depending on which one you want to use. I see there was Amber, Harvard referencing can be a bit confusing. Okay, then Louise, you seem very switched on. Harvard is simply a linguistic equation that is added to or removed from our user's equation, the reference list, surname, initials, year, title, place of publication, publisher. Okay, fantastic. Now, in EndNote, you'll see Harvard listed there. And you can go in and click Harvard. And I mean, there's at least 2 or 3 other different Harvard. I also get a bit confused. Yeah, Tabile, let's just talk about referencing a book. Yeah, we can talk about referencing a book. So what I'm going to teach you just now is that Google Scholar, when it comes to referencing, is your best friend. Okay, so Tabile, hold that thought because we're going to come. Every published piece of knowledge in the world today, okay, has some sort of referencing system. And if it can be included in your writing report or project or thesis or whatever it is, then it will have enough fields that you can include. Now, even in my PhD, I referenced a few blog articles or contemporary news sources, etc. But I certainly didn't rely on those in my literature review. They were very peripheral, but I did add them in, and EndNote does cater for them. You're not going to find those in Google Scholar in the tip that I give you. And there you will need to type in a few things, and EndNote's just got the fields. And in EndNote, when you create a reference, you can pick, is it a blog article, is it a journal, etc. But for the bulk of your core primary academic sources, okay, you will be able to click a button in Google Scholar, bring it into EndNote, and attach your PDF to it. Okay, and Tabila, the reason I'm saying all of this is that I'm almost 100% convinced that any, proper book, and okay, I guess there's a lot of sort of self-published books that don't have all this reference information, but if it's a proper book that you need to reference, it will also be in Google Scholar. And that's the power of Google. Now, Google is not powerful for a full coverage of all the academic works to get the plain text. And when I talk about the plain text, is the actual information in the document. What Google is very powerful for is consolidating all the available citations. And that's all that you need, is that metadata at the top, the highest level there. I'm pretty certain that they're going to have pretty much everything in there. And even if they don't, you can still also go into the academic databases itself and grab it there. All right, let's get into then a little bit more around the different tools. So we've got, as I said, a couple of different tools. So in the bottom there, EndNote, that's a primary referencing tool that I use, that I'm familiar with, and that I give you more detailed tips and tricks and demos of in the course. And then the top left there, Google Scholar. That is obviously what we're all very familiar with, is a subset of the total Google search engine. So you just type in scholar.google.com. And if you haven't done that, go and do that. But remember, don't rely on that to give you a full systematic literature review of all the available research. From the perspective of the importance in the search rankings, this is very important. So don't rely on a Google search to quickly show you the works that are important. Okay, you will need to understand within your faculty, within your field, what are the journals, what are the authors, what are other people's cite, etc., that you need to go directly to through the academic databases. The way that I teach Google Scholar is when you already know what the reference is what the source is that you want to reference. You can then quickly go and type that into Google Scholar and get that metadata and quickly load that into EndNote. Google Scholar is not advisable to search comprehensively for sources. Initially, absolutely fine. When you're still developing a topic, when you're still entering into the field, you start to still get some familiarity with stuff, by all means, go and type in Google Scholar, go type in Bing, go type in Microsoft, go look in your library, go read the newspaper. But eventually, you're going to be converging. And when you get, and I teach in my how to write a research proposal, you have different lines of inquiry. When you get to that overlapping sort of middle section that you need to focus in on, that's going to be very much more targeted on your academic databases. And the tips and tricks that I teach you is in referencing with regards to Google Scholar is a lot more about when you already know what the source is. Okay, so I just want to put a proviso there on Google Scholar. Please, guys, anybody today that's using LaTeX, please just drop it in the chat. Now, LaTeX is actually a programming language that produces the visual written output, okay, for you. Microsoft Word is what's called what you see is what you get. As you type in Microsoft Word, what you're writing in is exactly what is going to be printed out on the printer or converted into PDF to be submitted to your examiner. When you type a report into LaTeX, you're actually typing it in coding language. And if any of you have used it, please do pop a note in the comment. I'd love to chat with you because it's quite tough to learn. But it's quite interesting because you just focus on the text or the image or the data in the table, and then LaTeX does all the formatting for you. So when I submit it to a conference, they give you a file and you load that file in LaTeX, and then you just focus on the text and the equations, the numbers, the image, etc. Press a button and it produces the whole PDF. And all of us, I'm sure, know and have battled with, Microsoft Word, the table doesn't align and the image off to the left. And now when I carriage return, it pushes everything down over here. So we've all had those frustrations with Word. And just by the way, LaTeX also has a very comprehensive referencing system whereby you load into your LaTeX program the referencing style that you need to use. Cara says, I remember typing in the entire reference in my undergrad. Thank goodness I found EndNote in my honors. Cara, I've been there. I know, and Word does have a very basic referencing system, but when you get to having sort of 100, 200 primary academic sources, you absolutely need to use a tool. So I know that a lot of us, we may need to pay for a license, see if you can get it through your university, or just, depending how much do you value your time. If you're able to save a few hours, for a few $100 or whatever the cost of the license is. So David Biggs says he uses LaTeX. So David, thanks for popping that in the chat. In the course that I'll make available now, I just give a very introductory lesson to referencing in LaTeX. But if you haven't used LaTeX or you're not familiar with it, then give it steer clear. Stick with what you know. Don't switch across sort of midway. And LaTeX is used a little bit more in the engineering space, humanities, and that is much more the what you see is what you get word processors. Lucinda says, I've never heard of EndNote. I have a feeling it's going to be a very valuable video for me. Lol. Okay, fantastic, Lucinda. So even more than this video is going to be the course that I'll make available to you just now, because I take you through a series of lectures over a couple of hours with some assignments and activities and stuff in there that you can go and then get to grips with EndNote and have a look at it for yourself even before you make a final decision. So today I'll put a couple of screenshots up so that you can see exactly what it looks like. But again, Lucinda, my big thing is how much do you value your time? So the hours and hours, that Cara spent typing in her references in her undergrad, she never would have been able to do that for, postgrad work. And those hours and hours and hours, is it worth just, spending a few $100, getting it done properly and saving you that time much later on? Tandiwe says, I only found out about EndNote when I was doing my honors as well. Unfortunately for me, I found out about January, so I used it throughout the year. It's a great tool indeed. Okay, fantastic. So we've got lots of support here for EndNote, which is fantastic. Thanks for the support there, guys. But Mendeley, Zotero, all these others also decent tools as well. Okay, so let's just now talk about the sort of cite as you write story that I was going on about. So on the left-hand side there, and both of these come from the video and from the course. And in the course, I scroll through my own PhD, I think it is, my full final report, and I talk about the citation approach and principles that I used in my report. And very importantly, like I was saying at the beginning, I also talk about the context of citing in a paragraph. You don't just put a citation in there. It has to flow. You have to think about the journey of the reader through your writing. So, and again, humanities and engineering is going to be slightly different. Engineering often puts the citations at the end of the sentence, whereas humanities brings it to the front. And like I was saying with humanities, so what you're looking at here is the IEEE style for engineering. And it's obvious, guys. Humanities emphasizes humans, okay? So that's why they put the surname in the citation. Don't know if you've ever thought about it like that. If I was to click a button on my PhD final report and switch from IEEE to APA, it would automatically fix all my citations. And instead of looking at numbers in that paragraph on the left there, you'd be looking at name or surname, year, surname, year, surname, year, surname, year. And that's obvious because humanities, they want to know the people that wrote these things because it's a much more human orientated field. So somebody who's writing about English literature, for example, is an expression of that person. Engineering is a much more objective, impersonal field. And as much as I'm an engineer, there's very little human expression in engineering. Now, I did my whole PhD because I strongly believe that there is a human expression in software engineering. And I firmly believe that the reason we have wonderful exponential apps today that understand the way people think is because you've got humans writing code. You can go and read my final report if you want to read more about that. But again, if you were looking at humanities, you'd see surname, year, all the way through here. And then on the right-hand side is just a screen grab of the list of references at the end of my final report. Now, it is organized according to the number. So if you can imagine you're citing all the way through, that number is going to show you the sequence of the references all the way through. Now, you remember I talked about some articles and stuff, and that was very much later in my final report. The references to the top of that list are going to be the ones that I reference earlier on in my final report, and are probably going to be the more important ones, in my introduction and my literature review, etc. And that's kind of some of the logic because they want to see which are the more important ones, etc. at the top. But again, a humanities list of references is going to have it organized alphabetically by the surname. So although, and like I said to you earlier, in there you still see the surname and the year, but it's just one of the fields. In humanities, it's actually in the text and it's alphabetized and shows the importance of the surname in how that list is organized. Okay, so that's just a little bit of how of some of the screenshots in the course that you get. So you can go in there and have a look at that. Okay. Right. Now, so to get to that final output, and if you have the EndNote plugin set up in Microsoft Word, as you're then typing through, you'll be able to click cite, and this window will pop up on top of your Microsoft Word document, okay? And you'll actually be able to search through your EndNote library. So there you can see in the middle is an EndNote window. I don't go out into EndNote and come back to Microsoft Word. It's just a plugin inside Microsoft Word. And I can go and type in there the reference that I know I need to cite, okay? Now, just park that for one moment. You as the expert making this contribution should be able to think, I had that reference, I need to bring it in here, this is what I'm talking about. Like we heard just now, the article that references the other article, etc. So I'm going to reference the core article. Let me go find that, type in a search, click a button, and it brings in the citation. Okay. Quick and easy and simple. And the single biggest thing that I teach in the course, and that I want to teach you guys today, is referencing is an integral part of academic writing. Don't think that you can leave it until the end and you'll come back and add in all your references. Don't do that, please. If you have your EndNote reference library set up and you've been adding references in there in the way to that I teach in the course. Vishal, good afternoon, welcome. We got about 20 minutes left, but you haven't missed too much, and welcome. Great to have you, and no problem. Great to have you here. Okay, so do it as you go. Cite as you write. And it's in the term, cite as you write, while you're writing, because your interpretation of the reference or the source in the way that it'll mean the most for the reader, you're going to be able to do that best when you are first writing that sentence. And even if you can't fully look up the source and bring it in the way that EndNote offers you to do in Microsoft Word. And what I used to do is I used to put a yellow highlight thing and write a note to myself, bring in that reference by that guy that spoke at that conference. Okay, and I knew when I scanned through all the yellow highlights, I had to go back and fix. Now, I regretted doing all of that because by the time you get to a couple of hundred pages of a final report, to think back to when you were writing that paragraph and what you were intending to say and how you wanted to bring that source in, yes, you might need to change it over time, but I would just strongly recommend you try and do it as you go through your writing. And that is really going to, I think, improve your ability to refer to other sources in the best possible way that'll have the most value for your writing and your research and your contribution to society. Okay, so guys, just very quick, let me just refer you to the members only Facebook group. We spoke a little bit about that earlier, and I really would like you all to join us in the members only Facebook group, because the most important thing about studies, guys, never mind coronavirus lockdowns and everything, it is a lonely journey if you're studying. And so we all haven't been on campus and we all don't get to see each other, but at least come into communities like this one, or choose another one if you want to. But this really, it's fun. I moderate it, and all the slides from today, for example, I'll pop it in there, this afternoon, etc. We've had people that have had questions answered in the webinars, and then, I asked them, please follow up in the group later. And I want to see the action. I want to see the outcome from these webinars. If you're sitting here and you're learning something, I'm going to ask you in the Facebook group, who changed or did something differently or got some benefit? Put that into the Facebook group, but please come and join us in there to be able to not only get the support from your fellow students, but also then to make the contribution. We've also got a mentorship program running. You can get linked up to a mentor. We've got a couple of people that are mentors in the group. We've got a couple of people that signed up to be mentors as well. And then the podcast launched at the beginning of this year. So click on that link. You can search for it on any podcast platform. But every Wednesday, there's a new episode with an interview where I talk to students about their success stories and their tips and tricks that they learned as they were going through studies. And there's some really wonderful, inspiring stories in there that you'll be able to pick up. So do subscribe and give us a rating and a review on the platform as well. And I love podcasts because you can get away from a device and a screen. you put your headphones in, go for a walk, go for a run, go get some exercise, etc. So all of these great topics and all the tips and tricks that I learn are available in this audio format, but through the lens of the stories of other successful students and people that are grappling with very similar things that you guys will be going through as well. And then those of you that were in the masterclass webinar a couple of weeks ago, there's a student success course also available, but it's also available in an ebook format. So a lot of people like to read, and that is actually, I've marked it down to $0 on the Amazon Kindle store, so you can pick it up at that link and go grab a copy. It'll be only for today until about 10 o'clock tomorrow. But please, I do ask you, any course or book of mine, please leave a rating and a review. If it didn't add value to you, then put that in there and tell me what I would need to do to fix it and improve it. But if it did add some value, please do leave a rating and a review in there as well. And of course, very importantly, where you are today is obviously the YouTube channel. And I need all of you guys to go and subscribe onto the YouTube channel. And I drop regular videos there. And importantly, any of the questions in the chat that I don't get to in the webinars, I go back to those questions and I answer those questions. I do a 4 or 5 minute quick video. So you can pick up those questions and answers in separate videos on the YouTube channel. But please do go and subscribe there. All right, so let's get into then EndNote. Now, EndNote, there is one lesson and one demo of EndNote in the course. It's not a comprehensive review of all the features in EndNote. In fact, what I teach in the course about EndNote is that I thought I needed to learn EndNote, but in reality, I didn't really need to use all of its own features. The most important thing to me was citing as I write when I get into Microsoft Word. And then if you look at that, on the top right there is your list of references. So now all the PDFs and sources that you get, you're going to populate into your EndNote reference library, and you're going to be able to sort them and manage them and view them according to the different fields of the citation. Now, you can set up your window slightly differently, but what I do is in the bottom right, I have a visual of that PDF, okay, just on the bottom right-hand side, so I can also see what I'm looking at. And then in the middle there, you see the citation. Now, that citation is exactly what will pop up in your list of references at the end of your document that you're writing. Obviously, the actual citation in the document will be based on the referencing style. Like I've shown you, IEEE is just the number, or humanities is the surname and the year, for example. But what you see there is what's going to pop up in the list of references. Then on the left-hand side is just a folder structure. And I thought that I needed to do that a lot more than I did. And it ended up not being all that useful to me. But what it could be for is if you've got multiple writing projects on the go, you can group references around different projects, or writing projects or assignments, etc., that you need to work through. But what I do want to direct you to is that stars on the right-hand side there. So you see just there's a rating. So we were talking about ratings just now of books and courses, and I really do please ask you guys to go and rate my courses and my books or anything that you consume on the Student Success Coach podcast. But in exactly the same way that you would do that here, you can go and rate your references in EndNote. And for me, this was the single biggest, most useful feature of EndNote. Because what it meant was, if I rated a reference 5 stars, okay, now you're not going to be able to read all your references end to end. You're not going. It's just impossible. What you will be able to do is get a quick sense of how useful you think that might be when you come to writing up your report. And if you are fairly certain that you need to include that reference in your final report, give it 5 stars. If you're not sure, it's a good reference. You're not sure if it's 100% relevant, give it maybe 3 stars. And if it's totally relevant, you don't even need to worry about it. It's 1 star. You've got it there and it's on your list. Okay. Now, when you come to actually writing, remember what I said to you. Yes, you need to cite as you write, but you also need to try and remember somehow all these wonderful references that you've got available. And the way that you do that is to sort your list of references on that rating column there. Now, guys, I promise you now, I'm a real person sitting here. I got my PhD last year. I went through and I used EndNote. I cited as I wrote, but this feature was so powerful because when I was sitting late at night and I was trying to remember all the references that I had been through, it would have been impossible for me to scroll through the list of authors, or to scroll through the subject or the topic or the title or the conference or the journal, if I had rated that reference at the time that I read it, and I downloaded it off the internet quickly, or I got it in an email from my supervisor, and I gave it a 3 or 4 or 5 star, when I clicked that rating column, it put all of my 5-star rated references at the top. And I could quickly look through, oh, remember that 5-star reference that I got there? Oh, I forgot about that one. Now you can also obviously group them, so maybe there's different areas of your topic, and that's what that folder structure is also useful on the left-hand side there for you. But I honestly, guys, didn't get to that level of sophistication. I just got to the level of thinking about whether this reference was going to be useful for me to include or not, or maybe I wasn't sure. And I used that 5-star referencing system, and you can see there that is not something that comes through with the reference. That rating is something you give to the reference. And when you're sitting scrambling to try and submit and cite as you go, that is what's going to be useful. Okay, so Leandri says the course is very insightful. Thank you. I've been using EndNote for the past 3 years, but still found the tips very useful, especially the star rating system. So thank you very much, Leandri. And I think just on that note, let's put the course link there for you guys to go and grab. Please do enroll as soon as possible, because that link that I give you, and it's the same whenever I provide free courses in these webinars, it's good for 3 days. After that, it goes back to normal price. You can share that link with anybody as well if you want to, but the enrollment lasts, I opened it up about half an hour ago. So from that point, for the next 3 days, it's available. Go and enroll, share it if you want to. As many people that can get benefit from it, can take advantage of that. Leandri, looks like you've got a couple of degrees there in your profile picture. So you're talking with some credibility about the course, which is fantastic. You've been using EndNote for the past 3 years, still found the tips useful. So Leandri, when are we going to do a course together and we can go through all the features of EndNote? Because I think you probably got a lot more learnings about EndNote than I do. I think I was a bit of a hacker. I just used EndNote to the degree that it helped me graduate with the minimum amount of stress and the minimum amount of time that I had to spend on referencing. So Leandri, looks like you're quite the expert there. Okay, and there's the referencing system that I mentioned that Leandri talks about. That's just a zoom in there, that rating there. So now remember, you're going to have so many references, and some of them are repeated, and some of them are from the same conference, and you can't remember the authors. Just use the referencing system, use the rating system that I talk about in there. David Biggs wants to know about EndNote versus Mendeley, if someone has experience with both. David, sure. Come in the community, maybe ask the question there as well. People might have experience with Mendeley. I don't know too much about Mendeley. Paul says, I'm still doing my degree, and I'd like to know if it's possible to download EndNote for free, and where can one download it? Paul, some universities do have arrangements with EndNote, or whoever makes EndNote, to give you a student license. I luckily had a bursary with my employer, so they paid for any of the tools that I needed. I just needed to submit an expense claim. But I, just off the top of my head, don't think they do provide a free student license on their website, but maybe through your university that could be possible. Okay, now I want to get to the Google Scholar tip. Okay, so remember what I said to you is, when you know what the reference is and you want to quickly bring that into EndNote, go and type that into Google Scholar, and maybe you just know a couple of keywords. So like mine there, I just typed in Alchema, CodeFest, Agile. And with those combination of those 3 keywords, it's going to come to the top, okay? Because that's the power of the Google search engine. You just have to give it a couple of keywords, and it's going to triangulate on that source quite accurately. Now, underneath the Google Scholar search list there, you will see those 2 little quotation marks that I point to in the arrow. And again, this is screen grabs from the course. So in the course, I take you through this, and I actually do a live demo for you in the course, which you can pick up. But I'm just giving you the highlights now so that you get the value from the session straight away. You see those double quotation marks there. So now, let's say you want to cite that source in your thesis or your final report. But first, you need to bring it into EndNote. Okay, click that button. Okay. Now remember, you know what source you want to reference. Maybe you were searching at Google and you saw a source that looks excellent and you want to cite it. Fantastic. Okay. Now, not all of the PDFs will be available in your Google search, because they are often closed subscription and available only in the academic database. And that's where you need to log in with your university credentials. Okay. But again, you know the source. So it's easy to go and get it in the academic database or to look for it on Google. Now, you can also do this on the academic databases as well, but I just found it so quick and easy on Google because I didn't need to log in anywhere. So you click that quotation marks, and a window opens in Google Scholar that says cite. Okay. And you get the 5 styles right there. Can you see that? Is this helping anybody here? When I saw this, okay. Now down the bottom there, you see there it says BibTeX, EndNote, RefMan, or RefWorks. Now, to the point on the chat about the question between Mendeley or EndNote, I don't see Mendeley there as an example. So I cannot say whether this will work for Mendeley. But if you click EndNote, the bottom on the right-hand side, you see at the bottom there, it says EndNote. You click EndNote, it generates that little metadata file, and it drops it in your Chrome or your browser downloads bar at the bottom. You click that, EndNote automatically opens, and it's created that reference in EndNote for you with all the correct referencing information that you need. And that is the power of Google, because Google has gone and pulled all of that information in from the academic databases. It cannot give you access to the PDF, but you've got that little citation and the metadata. One click on Google Scholar, second click on that window, the third click on the little file opens up in EndNote. Once you've got it in EndNote, you attach the PDF. Boom. Okay, guys. So I don't know if you already knew that. Fantastic. Leandri, thank you so much. We must have you on the show sometime, and I'll interview you about all the value that you've got from this. Leandri, for me, that function was a game changer, because to have to go and pull that stuff in from all over the place, the only thing that you have to have is the PDF. And often what I found in EndNote was it was clever enough. If the PDF, if I brought in that reference from Google Scholar and then I loaded the PDF, it automatically linked it in. But very often it didn't link it in. So the only thing you have to do is just go and grab that PDF, and you'll have that on your hard drive. And again, please don't think that you can rely on a list of PDF files on your computer somewhere to go and do proper referencing later on. Okay, guys, just in the last few minutes, I've put the course link there. So please go and enroll in the course. Go through it, and you get all the information. Couple of last topics quickly just on referencing. This is Google Scholar, and if you set up your profile in Google Scholar, so now you can access the sources, but you can also set up your profile, and it can start bringing through your published works. And this is what I want you guys to aim for, is that as successful students, you need to be publishing. At a minimum, your final report, it will be able to pull it through from your university database. Most of them certainly, and you can see mine there. But once you get something into a journal or a conference, and even if you go look at my profile, there was a question earlier about books. I wrote a woodworking book, and I think it's even pulled it through in Google. So if you were to go into Google Scholar and you would type in the books, I think it was Tabile mentioned about a book earlier, and I promised to come back to that. So in Google Scholar, go type in the book. Go do it now, and then tell us in the Facebook group if it's worked. Go type the book in to Google Scholar. You just need a few keywords, author, something about the title, and then the search, the front page, one of those is going to be your book. Okay? I almost guarantee you, underneath that book, if it's listed in Google Scholar, it's going to have those little quotation marks. You click those quotation marks, click EndNote, launch that file, boom, it's in EndNote. Okay? Can you reference websites and online stuff using EndNote? Yes, you can. Very quickly, in EndNote, there's a feature there. It says create reference, and then you've got a blank thing. Once you create the reference, you get a little drop down. It says, are you referencing a journal article, a blog article, a website, a newspaper article? I think you can even reference a tweet. You can reference a YouTube video. I mean, a couple of my papers, I reference YouTube videos. You can reference this YouTube video if you want this, and then it gives you the fields that are relevant for that type of reference. And then you have to go manually type it in, okay? You don't get, the automatic thing coming in through there. But there might be a way, I just haven't found it. I've only developed it for the proper sort of academic sources and references. And then very importantly, guys, you want to start getting cited. Okay. Now, if you have a career in academics, then the number of citations that you get is going to be determined. So remember, lecturers publish or perish. Okay. If they don't publish a certain number of articles, that's why they're going to co-author your journal articles. Okay. Because then they get a point for a peer-reviewed article, and they get half a point for a conference article. Remember that. Okay. Peer review is harder to get in. But if you get referenced in another work in the right way, obviously, Google will pick that up here. And there's other obviously tools and etc. that can do it. ResearchGate as well as another one. But Google is just lovely because it just shows you this graph, and then it shows you your H and your I index. Okay. And you can go and you can follow some top researchers, and they've got hundreds, thousands of references against their name. And they're at the top of the rankings because everybody is like it's on Twitter. I mean, you can see when a tweet has got 10,000 likes, that tweet has been seen. Okay, same with the world's academic referencing system, where there's a lot of citations for a work or an author, then that work has got value and it matters for the academic world. Okay, Amy says there's a how-to manual for Mendeley on the Stellenbosch University Library website. And may I just say a warm welcome to Stellenbosch University. And we have now got permission to share these sessions with you guys every week. If you don't get the email for whatever reason, please hop on 12 o'clock every Friday. We will be here. There will be updates in the Facebook group. So even if you join the Facebook group, you'll get all the updates there. Or the emails will come through on a weekly basis from the universities. So Amy, welcome to you. Welcome to all the Stellenbosch. I studied theology. I did a postgraduate diploma in theology at Stellenbosch. I know Stellenbosch well, and I'm just thrilled that you guys have given permission for these sessions to come through on your emails. Okay. Okay. So Louise Krailing is just asking Amy if you could provide a link. Okay, so you guys can just collaborate and help each other there. Tebogo, this is exactly what I needed. Thank you so much. Absolute pleasure, Tebogo. Now, ResearchGate, very quickly. When you load your final report, thesis, or document up into ResearchGate, if you haven't set up a profile there, ResearchGate or academia.edu, those are the two biggest sort of social media equivalents in the academic world. I think ResearchGate is probably, just from what I've read, maybe the better one to invest some time in. When you do that, and I was amazed when I saw this, I just loaded a PDF up into ResearchGate. ResearchGate went in and it analyzed that PDF, and it picked out, because it's got the algorithms, the artificial intelligence, to see where the referencing section is, and then it extracts all the references and it creates a separate tab. So now in ResearchGate, you can see there, it says references 146. Okay, it's a little bit hidden there. I didn't do anything to create that. I had 146 references in my final report. It created all of those references in a separate tab, and it tagged all the authors that I had referenced. So if those authors are on ResearchGate, they get a notification to say, you've been tagged in this dude, Peter Alkema's final report. Now, if you want to collaborate, with those people that you're citing in your work, which you can't just, you must be involved and, participating in the community or your field, etc. I found this incredibly powerful. Now, for me, this is technology and artificial intelligence. You've done your PDF, you've done the work, you've cited everything, you've done it. That's fantastic. Academic databases sort you out. Now, in the sort of social media world of the academic community, where people are following each other's research, etc., boom, now your references have created points of collaboration for you in ResearchGate. Okay, right. There's lots of tips coming through on Mendeley. Fantastic, guys. We're not all just about EndNote here. I want to help you with whatever tool you've chosen. So Mendeley, there's some lack of tips there that you guys can go through. All right, so I've spoken about the course, and it is how to learn academic referencing with EndNote, tips from my PhD. And it is really anchored around what I learned from my PhD. So I take you through my document. I give you lessons and tips and tricks. And Leandri's spoken about having done the course. We talk about EndNote, Word, Google, and there is a short lesson on LaTeX as well if you want to go and look at that. But I'm by no means, have got a lot of experience in LaTeX. Okay, so there we go. There's just a little bit of testimonials about the course, and I'm hoping, guys, if you enroll, please put a rating, put a review on there. So there you can have a good sense of some of the value, hopefully, that you get from the course. which is always fantastic to see. And there's the course content. Now, we're going to end off soon, but I'll put all these slides into the Facebook group. So you guys absolutely need to be in the Facebook group. I want to put the link there again, because we'll continue this conversation in the Facebook group, and I'll give you all the value in there. I'll put the links in there again as well, and all the slides from today. But when you hit the landing page for the course, you can go and see the sections, you can go and see the lessons, you can go and see exactly what you're going to get out of it. And even if you forget about it and you come back to it and you need to pay for it, ask me, I'll open it up for you, or you can see the ones that are underlined there as free preview videos. And then maybe just to quickly mention this week's podcast episode, Claire Kelty, she got a distinction in her master's, which she studied part-time while she had twin girls at the age of 2. Robin says, will this video be recorded? I missed the beginning. Yes, Robin, it will be recorded. Just hit exactly the same link that you got. Wherever you saw this, an email, click the same link and you'll get this entire same recording and be able to go through it again. So guys, I'm going to start ending off. I actually need to go pick my daughter up from school. So happy Friday, everybody. And I do hope that it's been useful. Please go check out the podcast and you can go and listen to Claire's amazing story. And then the last point is just the Student Success Masterclass as an ebook is available on Amazon Kindle. It is also available in my course portfolio, and there obviously you'll get the videos and a lot more interactive content, but most of it is also available, and I've converted it into a read format inside this ebook over here. And please go and give me a rating and a review. And if you are a regular Kindle reader and you subscribe to Kindle Unlimited, then you can also get it for free in there. But today only, for I think the next sort of 20 hours or so, it's free on Amazon, so please go and grab it there. And with that, I'm going to say goodbye. Thank you, everybody. Any questions that I haven't managed to get to, there will be individual videos on the YouTube channel. So absolutely crucial that you guys do go and subscribe onto the YouTube channel, because then you'll also automatically get those. And then once again, please comment, like, just give us an indication of what's useful, etc. And I will keep, producing good content and putting all of this together for you. It really is my commitment to your success. So good luck. Have a happy Friday. Join us in the Facebook group. Tell us if you learned something. I'll put all the slides in there for your easy reference. No pun intended.